Hey friends, this is Sean Washburn from YourExcelTutor.com, and you're watching 30 Tips in 30 Days. And today's tip is one of my favorites. This is one of my favorite functions, and it is called VLOOKUP. And you'll say, if you've never gotten into the functions in Excel, you might be like, what's a VLOOKUP? Because it's not like a term we would use anywhere else. But what it means is a vertical lookup where we're going to look at a table, and we're going to look at the far left column of a table, find a number that we're going to match, and then extract data from that table. So it just makes it an easier way to almost have like a dashboard. If you have any kind of a dashboard in your files, or you ever want to make one, a great way to do it is using VLOOKUP. So if you have a friend who is an Excel junkie and uses functions, if you mention VLOOKUP to them, they'll probably smile because it's something that they most often, more often would use as well. So just to show how this works, so we've got this table of data. These are dimensions of certain parts, and what we want to look at is, let's say the factory has discovered that let's say A, F, and K. Say dimensions A, F, and K are really critical dimensions, and so even though all this data was taken, we want to be able to look in really quick and see for any given part what are dimensions A, F, and K. So how we would do this is, let's just pick a number. We'll say part 7. And here's how the VLOOKUP works. So, and you can go back and look at my previous tip about functions. We talked about the if function, and yesterday we talked about absolute and relative references, and that's going to be critical to this as well, because we're going to touch on that. So what we're going to do is type in VLOOKUP, and like I mentioned before, you can click on this function button if you want, and that'll also bring it up so you can see exactly kind of what it's looking at. And so the first thing you see is it's looking for a lookup value, and that's basically, hey, what do you want to compare to something in the table? So in our case it's this 7 here, so we're going to click this cell. That's 04, and then the table array is just the whole table. So we're going to come in here, we're going to drag this down. Alright, we got that whole thing. And then column index number. So here's where it gets a little tricky. We want to say, so column A is, if we look at this whole table, column A is the second column across. So we're going to put a 2 here. And that's basically going to say if it finds 7 over in this first column, then it starts at that row and it's going to look across to the second column, and that's going to give us a column, the value for A. And then the final one here, this range lookup, you can leave it blank. Basically what it's saying is, do you want the function to look for the first exact match? So in this case, like there's 17. If 17 was before 7, or maybe the 7 came first, like it was 71 and then 7. If I'm looking for 7, if I don't say false in this, it can actually find the first place that it found 7, or it found whatever text you're looking for inside other text. So in this case, I want to say false because I want it to just find the exact value that I'm looking for. And you can read up more on that. There's help down here. You can click that and it'll tell you more about it. So we're going to hit OK, and let's just see here. So 7, this is actually, so that matches 0.8957. Okay, we got the whole thing there. So we're going to get this a little smaller. And so now here's where it gets tricky. So we did that worked, but here's where the absolute and relative references comes in, because both for the table, well, mainly for the table. So when we go to do F and K, they're not going to work right, because if we copy this thing over, the table that they're looking at, you notice the table shifts for each one of these. So what we need to do is, when we did the table, that's red here, we're going to click here, we'll say put $signs in front of these, and when you put the $signs in front, that's what makes it an absolute reference. And that just means that when you go to copy this formula, that part will never change. So even though I copied this over, so now I'm over in this, I didn't like that because there's another thing that we forgot to do, and that is this 7 right here. So we're going to do that, We'll click a $sign here. So that's going to make sure as we copy this over, this formula over, it's going to look in column 0 or column O, and then that the table is going to be look the same table for each of these. So now we'll hit OK. Now we copy these over, and let's see, we'll look at the F. All right, and so in the F is going to be different columns. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can put the 7 in here for column. There's other ways to do this too. This is just kind of a rough way to do it. We're going to actually put the number in. So that was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we'll put 12 in here. So if we just check here, so we'll go in here. So F is 0.6, yep, 657, and we go all the way across. 0.927, 0.928, rounded up. So it gave us what we were looking for. Now that's a primary way that it's used, and we could, now that we've got these set, we could actually copy this down, and we could put other numbers in here. We could put 2, 3, 1, 5, and it should give us the same information for each of those parts, right? So that's where VLOOKUP really shines. That's the basic thing it does. Now, to make this simpler, what we could do, and we're not going to get into it in this tip, but for A, F, and K, we could have index functions that would look at this. So we'll look up here at A, it would find which column A is in, and then automatically find it down there. We could have, there's really a lot of ways you can simplify this so that you've got your VLOOKUP. We could even name this table. We talked about that in the one tip about naming cells and ranges. So if we name the table and just named it table, that makes this part a lot simpler here, and then all of it can be more simplified. But that's the main use there for VLOOKUP, and you can tie the more you get to know the different functions, you can tie a lot of them in together, and basically make it so that once it's set up, so this little dashboard, once it's set up and we have all our functions working right, all you have to do is change your part number, and then everything's going to update for you. It'll be super simple, and then you don't have to, you put in the data once, and then you don't have to thumb through it, to find the things you want. It's going to all come up for you in this little dashboard like that. So that's VLOOKUP, a basic look at VLOOKUP, but one that I think if you work with data, it's one that's really kind of a foundational function for you to learn. So check it out, play around with it, and I hope you enjoyed this tip, and check in tomorrow for another one.